Hello students, welcome to my channel Learning History Made Easy. In today's video, I will be explaining about the education, literature and art and architecture of Vijayanagara Empire. Before going into the video, if anyone is seeing the channel for the first time or if you have not subscribed to my channel, please do subscribe and share it with your friends. So without wasting time, let us get into the video. So as I told just now, today's video is about the education, literature and art and architecture of Vijayanagara Empire. So first let us start with the education and literature. Education and literature. And education and literature, we are dealing about the Vijayanagara Empire. Vijayanagara Empire. Okay. So regarding the education, first topic we can take education. Agraharas, mathas and temples played an important role in imparting education. So which were the places where education was given? That is, the main places where education was given. They were, the first was Agraharas, then mathas, Brahmanas mathas were there, and also temples. All these were the main places where children were given education. So they were given education in either Agraharas. Agraharas basically was the places where Brahmanas lived, mathas and temples. There was a special system of education during the Vijayanagara period that was called as Dhulakshara. A special system of education called as Dhulakshara. It was a system in which the child learned to write in sand. Child learned to write in sand. That was Dhulakshara. That was Dhulakshara. Dhul means mud or sand, and Akshara means letters. So Dhulakshara is where a child learned to write in sand. See, in many places now also we can see the first the child, when the first learned to write, the first alphabet or the first word is written in mud or sand, and that is how they start education. That is called as Dhulakshara. So that was a system which was started in Vijayanagara Empire. About this Dhulakshara, the reference is made in Mohanatarangini. Tarangini. It was written by Kanakadasa. So about Dhulakshara, it is referred in Mohanatarangini. Mohanatarangini is written by Kanakadasa. So Dhulakshara was an important system of education. The primary education during the Vijayanagara period, the primary education was called as Balabodhe. Balabodhe was the primary education, and the child learned to write in sand. That is called as Dhulakshara. So regarding the education, Agraharas, mathas and temples were the main centers of imparting education. Dhulakshara was a system of education in which the child learned to write in sand. It is referred in Mohanatarangini, written by Kanakadasa. Primary education of the time was called as Balabodhe. Now let us see some more points regarding the education of Vijayanagara Empire. Now, which were the main centers of education? The main centers of education during the Vijayanagara time were Hampi. Hampi was one of the important center of education. Sringeri and Kunigal. Hampi, Sringeri, Kunigal, etc. There are many other places which were centers of education. So the main centers of education during the Vijayanagara period was Hampi, Sringeri, Kunigal, etc. The Vijayanagara the kings, they encouraged literary activities. The Vijayanagara kings, they were great supporters of literary activities. The the kings encouraged literary activities, and even many kings themselves, kings and queens, okay, kings and queens were themselves scholars. They were very learned and they were scholars, and they even encouraged many literary activities. The many language literature was encouraged during that time. That is, Sanskrit literature was encouraged during that time. Kannada literature was encouraged during that time, and also Telugu literature also was encouraged. Not only these three languages, many other language literature was encouraged. So Sanskrit, Kannada, Telugu and many other language literature was encouraged during the time of Vijayanagara Empire. So there were many important centers of education like Hampi, Sringeri, Kunigal, etc. The Vijayanagara kings encouraged literary activities. The kings and queens themselves were great scholars. Sanskrit, Kannada and Telugu literature and other language literature were encouraged. So that is how literature developed during the Vijayanagara period. Now let us see some of the important literary works. So first we will see some of the important literary works in Sanskrit. Sanskrit literary works. So Sanskrit literary work, one of the most important Sanskrit literary work, it is Madhuravijayam, written by Ganga Devi. One of the most important Sanskrit works, Madhuravijayam, written by Ganga Devi. This is a repeated question for your exams. Who wrote Madhuravijayam? Ganga Devi. So the next important Sanskrit work is Raja Kalanirnayam. Raja Kalanirnaya was written by Guru Vidyaranya. It was written by Guru Vidyaranya. The next important Sanskrit work was Usha Parinayam. It was a very important Sanskrit work written by the great ruler Krishnadevaraya. So like this, many Sanskrit works are there. For your information, I am giving three important Sanskrit works. One is Madhuravijayam, written by Ganga Devi, Raja Kalanirnaya, written by Guru Vidyaranya, and Usha Parinaya, written by the great ruler Krishnadevaraya. Now these were the important Sanskrit literary works. Okay. So now let us see some of the important Kannada literary works. Kannada works which was written during that time. The most important, one of the most important works was Shunyasampadhaane. The Shunyasampadhaane was written by Siddalinga Yathi. So Shunyasampadhaane written by Siddalinga Yathi. Next is Basava Purana. The next important Kannada work was Basava Purana. Basava Purana was written by Bheema Kavi. Basava Purana, written by Bheema Kavi, was another important literary work in Kannada. Next one, Nalacharitha, very famous work, Nalacharitha, and one more, Mohanatarangini, both written by Kanakadasa. All these were like I said, in Sanskrit work there are many other works, but for the time being I am giving some important works. So Shunyasampadhaane, written by Siddalinga Yathi, Basava Purana, written by Bheema Kavi, Nalacharitha and Mohanatarangini, written by Kanakadasa. All these were the important Kannada literary works during the time of Vijayanagara rule. So we studied this important Sanskrit literary work, and now we saw the important Kannada literary works. Now finally we will see some important works written in Telugu. In Telugu, one of the most important work was Harivamsha. Harivamsha was a work written by Nachana Somanatha. That was one important work in Telugu. Another important work was Amuktamalyada. This was a very famous book, Amuktamalyada. It was written by again the great ruler Krishnadevaraya. And next work also is a very famous work, that is Manucharitamu, written by Allasani Peddanna. So all these were the important Telugu works. One is Harivamsha, written by Nachana Somanatha, Amuktamalyada, written by Krishnadevaraya, and Manucharitamu, written by Allasani Peddanna. In this Amuktamalyada and Manucharitamu is always repeated question for your exams. Those are very important. So these were the important Telugu works. So we saw important Sanskrit literary works, we saw important Kannada literary works, and then we saw important Telugu literary works. So this was the contribution of literature during the time of Vijayanagara rulers. So we saw the contribution in education and contribution in literature. Next we will see the contribution of Vijayanagara rulers in the field of art and architecture. See, we know that Vijayanagara rulers greatly encouraged art and architecture, and one of the most important centers of art and architecture was Hampi, center of art and architecture. That we all know because many of you must have seen Hampi, and Hampi is considered to be one of the greatest example or center of art and architecture during the Vijayanagara time. The style of architecture they used was Dravidian style. They used Dravidian style of architecture, and later to this Dravidian style what they did is they added some unique features. Okay. They added some unique features. So they had their own style, that is Dravidian style. To that they added some unique features. So after adding their own style, that is, so I told you some unique features were added with the Dravidian style, and after that it was called as Vijayanagara style of architecture. Vijayanagara style of architecture. So first Dravidian style was used, then some special features were added, and together it was called as a new style, that is Vijayanagara style of architecture. So regarding art and architecture, Hampi was a center. They used Dravidian style, later added some unique features and called it Vijayanagara style of architecture. Now let us see what are some special features of this style. So now we are going to see the important features of Vijayanagara style of architecture. Vijayanagara style. So that is what we are going to see now. So the first important feature of Vijayanagara style of architecture is a temple made in the Vijayanagara style consists of Garbhagriha, then it has a Sukhanasi, Mahamantapa for the performances and all, Mahamantapa, and Ardhamantapa. So this is the first speciality of the temples made in Vijayanagara style. So a temple made in Vijayanagara style will consist of a Garbhagriha, Sukhanasi, Mahamantapa and Ardhamantapa. Now the second important feature is the material used for construction was granite. Granite was the material used for construction. That if you observe the temples made in Vijayanagara style, you will see that most of them were made of granite. The third feature is pillars and piers of the temples were multi-angled. So they had pillars and piers in the temple, that is these pillars and piers, they are multi-angled. It was not the rounded kind of pillar, it was multi-angled kind of pillars. That was another important feature. Now the fourth important feature, the walls of the temples consist of sculptures. The walls of the temples were covered with sculptures. And whose sculptures? Naturally, temple means the sculptures of gods, goddesses, folklores, etc. were there on the folklore, etc. Okay, were there on the walls. So the temple made in Vijayanagara style consisted of Garbhagriha, Sukhanasi, Mahamantapa and Ardhamantapa. The material used for construction was granite. Pillars and piers were multi-angled, and the walls had sculptures, and the sculptures were of gods, goddesses, folklores, etc. So that was some of the important features of the Vijayanagara style of architecture. Now there are more features for this style of architecture. We can see the fifth feature. The fifth feature is the Sangeeta Mantapa. Sangeeta Mantapa, from the name only you can understand, Sangeeta Mantapa was constructed for music, dance and drama. For the performances of music, dance and drama, they constructed something called as Sangeeta Mantapa in the premises of the temple only. The sixth feature was huge Raya Gopuras. That is, big gopuras were constructed, that is like gateways were constructed in the entrance of the temple. In the entrance it was like gateway. It was huge Raya Gopuras. Huge gopuras were constructed in the entrance or the gateway. That was another feature. And the last important feature is the construction of Kalyana Mantapa. Kalyana Mantapa. That is, Kalyana Mantapa was constructed mainly for divine weddings. For the wedding performances, Kalyana Mantapa was constructed. So these seven were the important feature of Vijayanagara style of architecture. So Sangeeta Mantapa for the performance of music, dance and drama. Okay, I have written dance twice, sorry. Music, dance and drama. Okay, and huge Raya Gopuras in the entrance or the gateway, and Kalyana Mantapa for the divine wedding. So these were the seven main features of temples made in Vijayanagara style. Now let us see some examples of temples. The most important example is Hampi. Then we have Virupaksha temple. Another example is Virupaksha temple. Then we have Vittala Swami temple. Another example, Vittala Swami temple, etc. There are so many temples. They are examples of monuments of Vijayanagara. Hampi, Virupaksha temple, Vittala Swami temple, Mahanavami Dibba. Like that, so many examples are there. Now another example. So this was all the construction made in Vijayanagara style. There was another style of architecture, that is, if you see the Lotus Mahal, it shows an Indo-Islamic style of architecture. Lotus Mahal can be said as an example of Indo-Islamic, that is Indian and Islamic style mixed together. This Lotus Mahal is situated at Hampi. So if you see the Lotus Mahal, you can see it as an example of the Indo-Islamic style of architecture. Then Vidyashankara at Sringeri. Vidyashankara at Sringeri. Then Veerabhadra at Lepakshi. Veerabhadra at Lepakshi. Ekambaranatha at Kanchipuram. All are examples of important temples. Ekambaranatha temple at Kanchipuram. If you go on, the list will be very big. Kanchipuram, etc. So all these were the examples of important temples constructed during that time. So Lotus Mahal was an example of Indo-Islamic style. Vidyashankara temple at Sringeri, Veerabhadra-Lepakshi, Ekambaranatha-Kanchipuram, all were examples of important temples. So that was mainly about the architecture of Vijayanagara. Now let us see about the sculptures. So the main theme for sculpture is religion. Theme will be religion, gods, goddesses, folklores. So the main theme was religion, and there were different gods made in different patterns. For example, Kadalekalu Ganesha, very famous sculpture. Sasvekalu Ganesha. See, all these names came from the shapes of the statues or shapes of some parts of the statues. That is why these names, Kadalekalu Ganesha, Sasvekalu Ganesha, Lakshmi Narasimha statue, Lakshmi Narasimha statue at Hampi, all these are important sculptures which were made during the Vijayanagara time. Again, one more important is the copper image of Krishnadevaraya, copper image of the king Krishnadevaraya with his queens. That also was another important contribution in the sculptures of Vijayanagara time. Again, it is said that there is a very famous stone statue, same of Krishnadevaraya at Chidambaram. That also is important. Chidambaram is also important. So all these can be said as examples of the main sculptures of that time. That is, the main sculptures, the theme was religion. Kadalekalu Ganesha, Sasvekalu Ganesha, Lakshmi Narasimha statues at Hampi, copper image of Krishnadevaraya with his two queens, stone statue at Chidambaram, all are examples of the sculptures made during Vijayanagara time. So now, before proceeding, let us just see the main points which we have studied till now. First, we studied about education and literature. Agraharas, mathas and temples played an important role in imparting education. Dhulakshara was a system of education in which a child learned to write on sand. This is referred in Mohanatarangini of Kanakadasa. Primary education was called Balabodhe. Hampi, Sringeri, Kunigal, etc. were notable centers of education. Vijayanagara kings encouraged literary activities. Many kings and queens were themselves scholars. Sanskrit, Kannada, Telugu and other languages were encouraged. Some of the important literary works of the time are Sanskrit, Madhuravijayam written by Ganga Devi, Raja Kalanirnaya written by Guru Vidyaranya, Usha Parinayam written by Krishnadevaraya, etc. In Kannada, Shunyasampadhaane written by Siddalinga Yathi, Basava Purana written by Bheema Kavi, Nalacharitha Mohanatarangini written by Kanakadasa. In Telugu, Harivamsha written by Nachana Somanatha, Amuktamalyada written by Krishnadevaraya and Manucharitamu written by Allasani, Peddanna. Now regarding art and architecture, Vijayanagara rulers encouraged art and architecture. Hampi was a great center of art and architecture. They used Dravidian style. Later, some unique features were added and it came to be called as Vijayanagara style. Some of the important features of this style are: the temple consists of Garbhagriha, Sukhanasi, Mahamantapa and Ardhamantapa. Granite was used for construction. Pillars and piers are multi-angled. Walls of the temples contain sculptures of gods, goddesses, folklores, etc. Sangita Mantapa was constructed in the premises of the temple for music, dance and drama. Huge Raya Gopuras were built on the gateways of the temple. Kalyana Mantapa were constructed for divine wedding. Hampi, Virupaksha temple, Vithalaswamy temple, Mahanavami Dibba, etc. some of the important monuments of Vijayanagara. Lotus Mahal is an excellent example of Indo-Islamic style of architecture at Hampi. Vidyashankara at Sringeri, Veerabhadra at Lepakshi, Ekambaranatha at Kanchipuram are some other important temples. Then we learned about sculpture. Religion was a main theme. Kadlekalo Ganesha, Sasvekalo Ganesha and Lakshmi Narasimha statue at Hampi are important. The copper image of Krishnadevaraya and his two queens is another important statue. A stone statue of Krishnadevaraya is found at Chidambaram. So now let us move on to the next topic, that is painting. So we finished art, architecture, sculpture. Next is painting. Painting also developed during Vijayanagara time. And where was paintings found? Naturally, painting was found on walls and ceilings of temples. Walls and ceilings of temples. Especially at Hampi, we can see a lot of paintings. It can be also seen at Lepakshi also. Lepakshi temple, Hampi temple, etc. We can see a lot of paintings. And the paintings of Virupaksha temple at Hampi. Most important example is Virupaksha temple at Hampi. The paintings found in Virupaksha temple at Hampi are mainly related to Shaiva mythology. Shaiva mythology. So, walls and ceilings of temples contain paintings, and especially temples at Hampi and Lepakshi. The Virupaksha temple at Hampi, the paintings found there are related mainly to Shaiva mythology. And Lepakshi is very famous as the Ajanta of Shaivism. Lepakshi is called as the Ajanta of Shaivism. That is a very important point. Lepakshi is known as the Ajanta of Shaivism. So these are the points regarding paintings. Nothing much is there, only few points are there related to paintings. Now the last topic we are going to discuss is about fine arts. So in fine arts, especially dance and music was greatly encouraged. Dance and music was encouraged during the time of Vijayanagara rulers. Now Vadiraja, Purandaradasa, and Kanakadasa were the three important personalities who belonged to this period. Vadiraja, Purandaradasa and Kanakadasa, they belonged to this period, and they were very, very famous for devotional songs. They composed devotional songs called as Kirtanas. The devotional songs composed by them were called as Kirtanas, and among them Purandaradasa is called as the father of Carnatic music. Very important, he is called as the father of Carnatic music. And there were a lot of dancing halls in Vijayanagara time, because they encouraged dance also along with music. And Bandham Lakshmi Narayana was a dance master, very famous. Bandham Lakshmi Narayana was a very famous dance master in the court of Krishnadevaraya. So these were the important points regarding fine arts. Dance and music were greatly encouraged. Vadiraja, Purandaradasa and Kanakadasa belonged to this period. They composed devotional songs called as Kirtanas. Purandaradasa is known as the father of Carnatic music. There were a good number of dancing halls during the Vijayanagara rule, and Bandham Lakshmi Narayana was a very famous dance master in the court of Krishnadevaraya. So just let us see the points which we have learnt till now. Painting also flourished with other arts in Vijayanagara. Painting can be seen on the walls and ceilings of temples at Hampi, Lepakshi, etc. The paintings of Virupaksha temple at Hampi and Veerabhadra temple at Lepakshi are related to Shaiva mythology. Marriage of Pampamba with Virupaksha, Madhuravijayam and Tripura Samhara are great paintings. Lepakshi is called as the Ajanta of Shaivism. Now finally, regarding fine arts, dance and music were encouraged. Vadiraja, Purandaradasa and Kanakadasa belong to this period. They composed devotional songs called as Kirtanas. Purandaradasa is called the father of Carnatic music. There was a great number of dancing halls at Vijayanagara, and Bandam Lakshmi Narayana was a dance master in the court of Krishnadevaraya. So all these are the important points related to the art, architecture, literature and education of the Vijayanagara period. So I hope you understood all the points very clearly. If you have any doubts, you can ask in the comment section. Please do like, share and subscribe to my channel. Your likes and comments will be of a great encouragement for me to make more and more videos. I hope to see you all soon in the next video. Thank you for watching.